Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your fave film critic, the podcast starring me, produced by me, hosted by me, Dom Griffin, your favorite film critic, and we got a pretty packed episode today, actually. I just want to reiterate that I feel very bad about last week's missing episode, and then this sort of apology episode about the missing episode. This week, though, I think we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I have been on sort of a staycation from work, and all I've been doing is watching movies. Since we last spoke, I have watched 23 movies in the last 7 days, which is not that crazy to like how I used to watch movies, but it's definitely for like me now, where I'm kind of washed and like I'm always like struggling to make time to watch things. It's pretty fucking killer. I'm feel really good about it. As such, usually I try to talk about news in the pod and then what I watched and then answer your questions. I only have a couple of questions this week, and they're actually ones I answered on the Lost episode, but I figured that I can re-record for this. That's fair. And I don't have anything to really talk about news-wise, so I'm not gonna nothing's been going on in the world that I'm like all that pressed about. Oh, I guess there's one thing we can sort of talk about, actually. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but a few episodes ago we talked about how Taylor Swift has this like concert film coming out that she essentially brokered a deal herself with AMC. Actually, I think AMC and like Cinemark as the distributors just cut the studios out entirely, which is kind of crazy. It sounds like Beyonce just did the same thing. The entire tour, the Renaissance tour that she's been on. Oh, it's like a world tour, like 56 dates, like $400 and something million gross, whatever, huge tour, right? People love Beyonce. We love Beyonce. Her fans have been asking her, where are the visuals? Where are the music videos? Why are you lying to us? Why do you do this to us, Beyonce? And Beyonce was like, all right, calm down. I made a concert film. It's got stuff from the tour. It's got me talking about my life, probably in like a very, very like curated, specified little way that she does. And then allegedly the music videos that she shot a while ago that people wanted to see. So, it's kind of cool. Like, I've already seen some Swifties say like Beyonce is ripping her off, and I don't think that's really accurate. But it is, like a new way for artists of this size and stature to release their stuff to the public in movie theaters without having to go through a studio. And obviously, studios are probably pissed at the exhibitors for it happening this way and getting cut out of it. But fuck, you guys didn't make the movie. You didn't headhunt these artists and give them favorable enough deals to where they'd want to involve you in the distribution process. So it is what it is. The Taylor Swift one, I think, starts the 13th, Friday the 13th. And then the Beyonce one, I think, is December 1st or something, like early December. And I think the Taylor Swift one has already got like $100 million in pre-sales for its dates. I assume the Beyonce one will do like the same, if not higher numbers, probably the same. And I don't know, it's kind of crazy because like the rest of the fall and winter slate for movies, like there are some big movies coming up, but like not necessarily from like a financial viewpoint. Like we've got the Marvels, like a big Marvel movie coming up, but like I don't think it's gonna make a lot of money, and in a way Taylor Swift and Beyonce are like doing a public service to these movie theaters, honestly, because like I know my theater's been like dead as shit. It's kind of the only reason I'm even able to take this time off right now. And every week I've just been like, all right, well, that didn't make any money. We just got to stick it out till Taylor gets here, and then after that. So it's kind of funny that Beyonce is going to be doing the same thing for later in the winter. And I don't know, it's just kind of crazy. Like, I don't know there's only a handful of artists on Earth anyway on that level. It's literally just like Taylor, Beyonce, like Drake, like The Weeknd, I guess. Like in terms of like modern artists, I mean, there's like classic artists who've been around forever who could still pack stadiums and do these movies and stuff. But like in terms of like the people, like the current people doing it, it's rarefied air. So it's kind of interesting to see if this is going to keep happening. Because I talked about this on the Lost episode, but the WGA strike is technically over. It's over. Like they It's writers can go back to work now. I don't think the actual ratification of the new deal has fully happened yet. I think it's still like in the offing. But assuming everyone votes on it, then yeah, it's fucking done. Now, I guess if magically everyone rejects it or something, then like the strike would be back on. But it sounds like the writers got most of what they wanted. Like they got some really good shit out of the deal, which is really good. I believe it was Adam Conover who was saying that like a lot of the stuff in this deal is stuff that at the first round of negotiations, the writers were told, you'll never get this shit ever. And they got it. And that's good. That's from the solidarity of these writers and working together and their bravery and stuff. And then like the fact that people have been supporting it too. I feel like that we're living in I don't want to say like a golden age or some shit like that, but it's like we're living in a time where I think more and more people are like going back to being supportive of labor action and stuff, which is really good. I think it's really good that people have been supportive. And I guess the AMPTP is negotiating with the actors now, or like about to start negotiating with the actors now, so they can sew that one up. My assumption is like if they caved and gave the writers everything that they're most of what they wanted, I'm pretty sure they're just gonna like don't want the actors to be continuing. You don't want these actors to be able to come out and like promote these fucking Oscar movies and shit like that in this next month. So hopefully that'll be over too soon. I want to be clear, not hopefully it'll be over like, oh, let's wrap this up. Hopefully it'll be over and that I hope they get what they want. I hope they get what they have been after. That's what I want. I want them to get what they're after because they deserve it. So yeah, that's cool. That's those are the only things really happening in the news. I'm sure there's like this isn't really news, I guess, but I didn't go see the new Exorcist movie. I'm going to try to see it this weekend. And it's getting like fucking murdered in the reviews. It's probably tracking to not do that well this weekend. Universal, I think it is, spent like fucking $400 and something million to get The Exorcist as a property on the basis of David Gordon Green's like whole idea for this trilogy and stuff. And they thought it would be like, oh, like the Halloween stuff they just did. If this one is being this badly reviewed and it's not making money like this, that is not a good sign. It's pretty fucked up. I don't know if it's just like Billy Friedkin's ghost coming in or whatever, but the movie does not sound good. I'm going to see it. I put it on my Hooptober list. So I'm going to go check it out. And there's like one other horror movie out this weekend. And I think it's a Spanish film, When Evil Lurks. So I'm going to try to go see that too. Cause it sounds interesting to me. Cause but I wasn't even looking forward to this movie, to be honest, but I was a little bit, not bummed, but a little bit surprised to see how like negative the reviews have been. Like they've been very harsh. I haven't read full reviews. I just saw like impressions on Letterboxd and stuff. Doesn't sound good. I mean, I've not been excited the whole time, but I'm still curious to see. Sometimes, you see, I don't know about other people, but I see a lot of like a wave of negative reaction to a movie. And then I go see it and I'm like, oh, I actually kind of fuck with this. This is nice. So sometimes that happens. I don't know if that's going to happen here, but we'll see. That'll be for next episode though. So enough of the news. Let's talk about what I watched because it's so many fucking movies. We're actually going to have to divide this section into like 3 subsections, I guess. I'll annotate it in the show notes or whatever. But basically, we're going to split up what I watched this week into 3 categories. What I watched on like my birthday or like leading into my birthday was this past Saturday, like leading into the weekend. And then what I watched for Hooptober, like the stuff that's on my like 31 movie Hooptober list. And I'll talk about what that is again, in case anyone forgets it from the previous episode. And then in the process of doing my Hooptober list, I had Freddy versus Jason on my list because I realized I needed a movie with Robert Englund in it. And then I felt really dumb because I realized he's actually in the Toby Hooper movie I picked for this month. He's in that movie already, so I didn't need to do this, but whatever. I added Freddy versus Jason to my list. And I've never seen a single Friday the 13th movie. I mean, I've seen a couple of scenes here and there on TV over the years, I guess, but I've never watched a movie in full. And I told myself, you know what? At the end of the month, I'll save Freddy versus Jason for my Halloween movie. And like the last day or two leading into it, I'll see if I can't binge the whole Friday the 13th series. And then a couple of days ago, I don't know what the fuck made me do this. I just added the whole franchise to my Hooptober list. And I watched the whole fucking thing. So the last 3 days, I've just been watching Jason movies nonstop. So that'll be like the main event of the episode. The featured part of the episode is we're just going to be me talking about the Friday the 13th series, like in some form of depth. I don't know how deep I can really get because It's kind of like a fever dream the last few days, but we'll get into it. So let's just start with what I watched just in general. So since the last episode, that night after I released that late shell of an episode, I wanted to watch a movie, but I didn't have anything. I didn't want to start my Hooptober list before October 1st. I don't like doing that. And I didn't have anything I had like a strong urge to watch, but I saw that they added the Meg 2, The Trench, to HBO Max. I'm sorry, to Max. And I was curious about that because I saw one that it had like people seem to like it. It made like a crazy amount of money for a movie of its size and stature. And I saw that like Ben Wheatley directed it, the guy that directed like The Kill List and High Rise. Just not a person I would have expected to make a giant shark movie, basically. So I was very curious. And then I was like, I never saw The Meg. So I watched both of them. I watched The Meg and The Meg 2, The Trench, back to back. And they were like fine. Like I actually don't have a lot to say about them. Like the two movies aren't that different. Like the biggest thing is just the Meg 2, The Trench, opens up with like a shark, a megalodon eating like a T-Rex. That's pretty fucking cool. And I like a movie that starts strong like that. But then the rest of the movie was like not that different from the first one. Like they're both of the same level of quality. To me, not a top tier shark movie like Jaws or The Shallows. Is that the name of the one with the gal from Gossip Girl? She's just by herself, or like 47 meters down. I kind of like my shark movies to be either elite like Jaws or like trashy. And this wasn't like, you know, fully trashy. It was like acceptable. It was like, you know, this is like a nice little movie. You know, it's no Deep Blue Sea, I guess we'll say. And like I like Stay Them and stuff, and it's pretty well made. They're both pretty well made. They just, you know, they were just fine. And you know, sometimes you watch movies and they're just fine. That happens. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to sound like a snob or something, but like, yeah, I'm really glad that that's not all I watched this week, because I don't have anything to say about these two movies, but I watched them. They're nice. They're fun, I guess. If you've seen them, you know, you probably know what I mean. If you haven't, and if you would have to be equally bored as I was to watch them. Like I just didn't really feel like watching SmackDown. I was like, kind of watching SmackDown in the background. I love SmackDown, but I just wasn't really in a wrestling mood. And then I was like watching this, and then I kept actually being distracted by SmackDown because it was a pretty good episode compared to what I was watching. So, that's how I ended up watching those two shark movies. There's actually nothing fun to say about that. I watched them. The next day, however, for my birthday, happy birthday me, so I wanted to be able to just go to the movies a bunch while I'm like not going to work. And I do not want to go to any theater affiliated with my job if I can avoid it. And I have to go for one thing next week, but otherwise, like I'm not fucking going. And I was like, oh, maybe I can like treat myself as like a birthday gift to like, I'll just get back on the Stubs list, the A-list Stubs program. Cause like I did it for that one thing, a few episodes ago, but I haven't done it since. And I was like, well, maybe I'll re-sign up. Then I was like, man, I don't want to have to like go to Wheaton or Georgetown or either of the AMCs around here really to indulge in this. And then I saw that like, and I was going to maybe do the Alamo season pass, but like they're not playing anything I'm really interested in at the moment. And Alamo's kind of a hike. It's not as convenient to the metro as like some other theaters are. I was like, that's going to be a deterrent. Then I was like, there's a Regal I can walk to from my apartment. And I was meeting my best friend downtown on my birthday near another Regal. So I was like, this makes sense. I'll try the Regal Unlimited program, which I just want to say is like a little mini review of Regal Unlimited Pass, whatever the fuck it's called. Signing up for it took like 20 fucking minutes. Like, it's not that I'm stupid. It's just that like the website kept giving me a lot of grief, and then I going into the app, and that was grief. And one of the chief things that was a problem, it's very embarrassing what the actual problem was. When you have AMC A-list and you go in and you use it, they have to card you. They have to make sure you're the person who is the account holder, so you're not just like sharing it with friends, right? Regal's solution to not wanting to card you is that you have to upload a picture of yourself when you use it. So now when your like Crown Club Regal Unlimited QR code thing pops up, it's a picture of you with the brightness turned to the max so people can see that it's you. And I was just trying to quickly just pick a selfie that I already had existing. I was laying in bed and I didn't want to take a picture of myself. But like all the like pictures that are on my iPhone are in like HEIF format or whatever. And like, you know, it wasn't a compatible format. And I didn't want to like use like a JPEG converter or some fucking shit. So like And then like I did just like use like darkroom or something to turn it into the JPEG, but then it was like I'm not facing dead on enough of my pictures because like I'm like a little princess and I always have to use my angles when I take selfies or whatever. So I had to take like a head on, algorithm appropriate picture. So I just took one in bed. It looked like shit and it worked. And then I was able to sign up for the program. And then I couldn't even fucking like use it for like a weird amount of time. And then I went on Reddit and someone was like, oh no, you just have to log out of the app and log back into it. It takes a long time to update. And then I did, and that worked. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? You guys need to get it together. Because like AMC's A-list, it was so smooth signing up for it. Like I didn't even want to sign up for it. It talked me into it and then made it such a painless, frictionless process. And Regal's was just like the opposite of that. The fucking polar opposite. Their website is garbage. And they're just, they're not my favorite. They're not my favorite, but I needed for logistic purposes to like do something with their chain. So I went to Gallery Place Chinatown. It's the Regal that's directly next to the Capital One Arena. There used to be a McDonald's over there, but they like are turning into a Chick-fil-A or something. Whatever. Anyway, I went to the Regal and I saw two movies. I saw The Creator, the new sci-fi movie from Gareth Edwards, I think is his name, and saw X, which I was very excited to see. I was actually really stoked that I could see a new Saw movie for my birthday. Here's the thing, though. So my whole plan was like, my best friend gets off of work at this time. We're going to link up. We're going to go to tacos and we're going to like hang out. And so I had to time the showings to make it so they'd be done when he'd be done and it would work out. And the only times that worked for this were the 4DX shows of both films in the same auditorium. And I've never seen a Regal 4DX movie before, personally, ever. And I was not that familiar with it. Like, I guess maybe I once was and forgot, but I assumed that 4DX was like Regal's answer to like AMC having Dolby and having IMAX. I mean, Regal has IMAX too, but I just assumed it was like a visual fidelity thing. I thought this was going to have like the loudest sound and like they have speakers in every seat or some shit and like, really clear laser project. Because like there's a projector at the Regal, at this particular Regal in Chinatown that I know has like a new laser projector because I went to a press screening of Amsterdam that had to get canceled because something was wrong with it. Like they just installed it, like it wasn't working or whatever. So that's what I thought. That's what I thought 4DX was. So I was like, oh, it'll just look nice. And The Creator it's like a pretty ass movie. So I thought that would be cool. So I go into The Creator, like the first show of the fucking day in 4DX. I realized that like they don't have recliners for the 4DX thing, and I was like, that's kind of uncomfortable and weird, but whatever, that's fine. And I go and I sit, and I realized that I picked a seat that was like very far away from the screen, and I like to sit closer, and no one else was in the show, so I was just like, I'm just going to go sit near the front. Who cares? It was 100% just me the entire showtime, by the way. It was just me alone. And the movie starts, and The Creator's like fine. It's like a pretty decent movie. I think, just talking about the quality of the film, it's really well shot. It looks really good. Visually, it's a very impressive movie. And I watched all the same featurettes about how they shot it on the Sony FX3 and like, it's a $4,000 prosumer camera and, it allowed them to, like people are really hyperfixating on the cheap camera thing, but a big part of it really is just that they were able to shoot with a smaller crew and they could shoot at a ton of locations on location and then just use like digital insertion of the sci-fi elements later rather than having to have sets and like blue screen and stuff. So like that's kind of why the movie looks better. It's cheaper than a lot of other similar big blockbusters, but it's just that they used really good locations and like that really lends the world a lot of texture and like beauty and shit. So a really nice movie to look at. Not super well written, like not a great script. It's got like big, sort of like trying to wrestle with 9/11 like Vietnam vibes, I guess. But in the movie sort of metaphor, like AI and like robot people are like, oppressed. And it just felt like a weird way to make a movie about AI now when like all the things about AI are like actually kind of disturbing and weird and like a little bit scary, to have a movie that's just like they're just people. We just have to be nice to them. And I was like, I don't know that this all comes together really. There's probably like a smarter, deeper read about the movie that maybe I'm not capable of from the experience that I had, and I'll explain why in a moment. But yeah, it didn't really grab me. It didn't really hit me that hard. There was a few really touching moments in it. I did cry a couple of times, and you guys know I love crying at movies. But I wouldn't go out of my way to see it. But I would say if you can see it, Try to see it on an IMAX screen. Try to see it somewhere that's going to look nice, because it is largely an audiovisual experience. Like the movie itself's content is like whatever. Here's what 40X is though. Okay, here's why like I didn't think that much about the movie on a deeper level. 40X is like, it turns the movie into like a roller coaster. It's like a theme park thing. Like, you know, those things you used to have at like, you know, like Universal Studios, or like that your seat rocks around and shit, and like all this stuff happens, like they splash you with water. It's that. That's what 40X is. And I didn't know that. And it would have been weird, period. Like just going in not knowing this would have freaked me out. But I think in my showing, it actually didn't like work originally. So like it didn't actually start doing 40X stuff for like 20 fucking minutes. And the first thing that happened is the Allison Janney and some other soldiers and John David Washington's character like getting in a helicopter, and like my seat started like rocking, and I thought it was like a lot of like teens hang out at this theater and just like act like assholes. So I thought some teens had gotten in my showtime or like shaking my chair, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to fight a bunch of kids on my birthday. But then I was like, oh no, it's not kids. My chair's doing that on purpose. This is like, that's what 40X is. I had this whole realization. I was like, oh my God. And then it's like shooting, it's like blowing air at you to mimic like the wind of the helicopter. And then like there's explosions off in the distance. And then it's like, there's like just like smoke coming up from the ground in the front of the auditorium. And like every time a laser gun goes off, there's like these red lights in the ceiling that are like flashing off to your periphery. If someone like shoots by a character and like narrowly misses them, it like does little like shoots little air pockets near your ear. I will say this. It was pretty immersive. Once I stopped like hyper fixating on how weird it was pretty cool. And I think that however it's designed, that it did in fact like, you know, add to the movie. It made it feel more immersive. I would have rather just seen it on an extra big screen or with like an extra fucking sharp contrast ratio with the colors. But in lieu of that, sure, shake my fucking chair around every time there's an explosion. That's fine. And it was a little bit distracting, honestly. Like, and on the one hand, it was exciting and it was like fun, but on the other hand, it was like, this is a weird fucking thing to be happening. This is very weird. This is like not fucking normal, you know. And it was just it was a fun time. I mean, like I don't regret it or whatever, but I ended up just like multiple times in the movie stopping, paying attention to the movie, and my mind would kind of go like, who designed this? Like, how does this? Because like I run a movie theater, so like I think about the logistics of the business a lot. So it was like I was like, like obviously there's probably someone at Regal, like at the corporate level or something, or like the R&D whatever, whose job it is to like program this stuff, right? Because like I imagine every 40X system has like the same controllers and pieces, and then every movie would have its own like set of like prompts and cues and stuff, you know, almost like the way a stage manager has to manage lights for like a production or something. And then I was like, or does the studio do it? And my friend Cody and I, we went out for tacos after this, and I talked about 40X a lot, and we were both trying to figure out like, who does this? And his theory, and I never looked this up because I sort of don't even want to know for real. His theory was that, you know, some ex-Imagineer from Disney or something who used to work on these theme park rides probably does this as like a consultant service, and then studios have to hire them on like a per project basis to like make them 40Xified. And then I was like, yeah, but I feel like if that guy existed, he would probably just work directly for the chain, right? Because only Regal does 40X. I don't think other chains have anything similar. And even if they did, it's not like it would be a universal system to where everyone would program exactly the same things, like to plug and play. There's not that compatibility, right? And I don't think it's someone's responsibility at the studio, because every studio has a different 40X guy, and they're like, oh yeah, we have to release this movie at Regal, we got to do a 40X version. Like, you know, I don't know how it, whatever. One thing lending a little bit of credence to the idea that maybe it is a studio dependent thing is that the 40X experience for the creator felt very like of a piece with the way the movie was produced. Like it felt very thoughtful and like very careful technically and stuff. And then right after this, I saw X also in 40X, and the stuff was very different. Same auditorium. I sat in a different seat, but like the implementation of this stuff. First of all, I guess that's we're done talking about the creator now. But Saw X, Saw 10, very fun Saw movie. One of my favorites of the entire franchise. Really well done. Absolutely loved it. Really had a good time with it. But I just want to say that like the thing about the 4DX stuff is that they're designed in a way that's like, okay, you're immersing me further into the story, but I'm experiencing a variety of perspectives, right? In the creator, sometimes I would be getting shot at because the main character is getting shot at, and you would feel like you were being shot at. And then sometimes the main character was shooting at people, and you would feel like you were being shot at still. So you always kind of felt like you were being shot at, no matter who was shooting. And I don't know what that does or takes away from the movie's themes about like imperial violence and stuff. So like that's kind of weird. You get to something like Saw 10, and like someone's in a trap, and like they get like, you know, poked in the back with a needle or something, and then it feels like someone's punching the back of your seat. And I realized, like, do you really want to design a 4DX Saw 10 experience that makes the viewer feel more like the people being tortured by Jigsaw? That's kind of weird. And just from the outset, like the movie opens with Jigsaw, our man John Kramer, Tobin Bell in getting like a CT scan or one of those medical scans, and like there's like his heartbeat kind of on the soundtrack, and like the seats are like vibrating to the beat of his heartbeat, and you're like, oh, that's kind of immersive, and like the red lights are flashing and stuff. And then like later in the movie, like a cell phone rings, and your seats vibrate to the rhythm of the ringtone, which is not immersive, by the way. It just made everyone in the auditorium think that their phone was ringing for a second. Like, oh, I thought I silenced that, so that was weird. But then otherwise, like the movie, and to be fair, Saw 10, even though it's directed by the guy who directed like 4 through 6, I think, or no, maybe 5 through 3D, I think, the last 3, whatever. Even though it's directed by a guy who also is the editor on all these movies, who like was very much a proponent of the Saw visual style, the shaky camera, the editing, the wooziness or whatever. This movie doesn't have quite as much of that, but there's enough of it to where like the seat was trying to like rock with the camera movement a little bit, and it was weird. And I also, this is my second 4DX movie ever, and Regal, if you're a Regal Unlimited member, on your birthday you get a free large soda and a free large popcorn, which I could not pass up, even though I go through periods where popcorn makes me nauseous to even look at. But I'm on an upswing where I'm cool with popcorn again. Me and popcorn are pals again. I kept thinking I was going to drop my shit like the entire time. Every time I'd start moving around, I had to like hug my popcorn because I'm like, this is going to fucking fall everywhere. Whose idea was this? You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it really makes Regal a lot of money. The tickets are more expensive, I guess, but like it's a weird fucking experience is all I want to say. And the biggest thing is that Saw 10 and all the Saw movies are like really fun movies. I think they're fun anyway. I know some people find them to be like detestable, but they are fun, and seeing a movie like a Saw movie with this experience is fucking hilarious. Like in the event you live near a Regal that has 4DX and they have any showtimes in 4DX left for Saw X, Saw 10, please just go see it this way. It is such a unique experience. It's so fucking weird. I don't know. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to do it again, to be entirely honest. I can't think of another movie where I'd want to experience it this specific way, unless there's something coming out that I know is gonna be dog shit. Like then it could be kind of funny. But if there's a movie I want to see, I don't want to see the 4DX version of it. It's not for me, I don't think. Because I kept having to like kind of like hold myself a little bit, because like I didn't want to be anxious throughout the movie, and because of how abrupt stuff is in Saw, not a lot of jump scares necessarily, but there's a lot of like stuff. I didn't want to keep feeling like, what the fuck is the chair going to do to me? What is it going to do to try to recreate the scene? So like I sort of sat forward and like kind of hunched like this and just kind of kept like trying not to fucking, in Black Panther when they're all under the waterfall and they're doing a little like Wakanda thing. That's what I was doing in my seat to like avoid feeling like I was going to fall over, or didn't want to drop my popcorn or my Pepsi Zero. So yeah, it was 4DX is fucking weird is the entire thing here. 4DX is crazy. But Saw 10, really good, man. If you guys, I don't know, of my viewers / listeners, I don't know how many of you are like actual Saw heads like I am. I've seen like the entire franchise a couple of times. I really like this movie. The biggest thing that's wrong with the Saw franchise, obviously, is that they have like this really perfect central villain character, John Kramer, Jigsaw, who has this great origin, this great reason, this great motivation for what he does. And then by the third movie, they kill him off. And then every subsequent movie is like ridiculous. And like there's like a cop that was secretly working with him, and he's the new Jigsaw. And there's this other cop, and they're doing a cat and mouse game. And there's this other guy. Like there's all this like, it gets so fucking convoluted by the last in continuity movie that it's just like, what? Why? And this feels like a little bit lighter touch with that. Like this movie takes place sometime between 1 and 3. And I was joking with my friend Justin. I was like, you know what? Technically, they could just say fuck it and make a bunch more sequels that take place between 1 and 3, like this, or pretend that 3 never happens. Just don't kill them off. Because like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like it's weird doing Saw, I think, without him. I think that the movies with Kramer are better than the ones without. I know some people in here are very serious Hoffman heads. Cody's a huge Hoffmaniac. I just prefer Kramer. I think he's a really cool character. He's one of my favorite modern movie characters, I guess. And it was good having him back here. I thought Tobin Bell was really good. There's this one scene in Saw 10 where Kramer is like, he's just had what he thinks is like experimental surgery that's going to save his life. So he has like a new lease on life. He's sitting in a park in Mexico, and he's like sketching a saw trap like in detail, and then he like stops and like balls it up and throws it in the trash. Like, no, I'm done putting people through moral ringers of death. There's like a bit early in the movie where there's like, you see a saw trap sequence and you realize it's just him fantasizing about doing it to a guy. And I was like, that's such a fun wrinkle that like Jigsaw just walks around thinking about doing this to people. I don't know. It made me want 10 more movies with Kramer, not with everybody else. And I don't know that it did well enough financially to make people super excited to do that. I don't, like I thought Spiral was going to do that and didn't really do stuff. So I don't know. I hope we get more Saw soon. I really like Tobin Bell's John Kramer. He's such a fun character. He's like just the world's like most fucked up Batman villain. I think he's great. So yeah, that was my birthday. I watched those 2 movies, and on October 1st, I hit the fucking ground running. This is embarrassing. I have to look and remember what movies I watched because I watched so many. I don't want to get them wrong. So Hooptober, as I talked about a couple of episodes ago, is like an annual like movie watching challenge that it comes from Letterboxd, and this is the 10th year of Hooptober. And every year there's like a bunch of like scavenger hunt-esque rules for the movies that end up on your list. Like you have to have movies that comprise like 8 decades, like 7 different continents, or like you have to have 2 movies that have this, or 3 movies that have that, or 1 movie that does this from this studio, like all this stuff. And my conundrum with the Hooptober thing is that in previous years that I tried to do this, I would make a list painstakingly. I would work very hard to make a list that fit the criteria. And then when it was time to watch the movies, I realized I didn't really want to watch most of those movies. And I would end up just getting sidetracked 4 or 5 movies in, and then I would just end up watching whatever's on Prime or whatever's on, a streaming platform that has like a cool poster, which is kind of more in line with, I think, the way most people like watching scary movies. I think most people who like horror movies enough to watch a bunch in October every year, like who are into that side of it, I feel like you either watch all your old favorites over and over again, or you just watch random shit that seems like the vibe, Yeah, I feel like both of those are kind of more honest. But I did have a couple of years where I did successfully do the full list thing, and it felt pretty good. I think 2020 was the first time I did it, which is like cheating, because what the fuck else were we doing, right? In lockdown. I think last year, I think it was not last year. I think last year I actually, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been 2019. I did it, and somewhere along the way, I got like sidetracked and added a bunch of movies that weren't from the original list. And then I added so many that I couldn't finish the original list in time. So I had to like cut some things and stuff, and I was kind of bummed about that. I'm already in danger of doing that for this month. So this year I made my list. I was very proud of it. I only made it in like 15 minutes. It was actually very easy. This year's list, this year's rules were pretty fair and like simple, and there was a lot of overlap with all of them, which is every year there's some, but this year it felt very easy to put together. And I watched, let me double check here. Sorry, I have to consult my notes. I watched 6 movies, 7 technically, this week from the original list already. But I've actually watched like 15 movies, I think, or like 18. I've watched 18 movies since October 1st. So like I did watch a ton of movies, but I added like 11 of them that aren't really from this list. So we're still ahead of schedule. And I don't have to go back to work until next week. So like, I'm definitely going to continue to get ahead of schedule because it's otherwise very hard to stick to the movie a day thing. So typically what I do, I don't really do a movie a day. If I have a day where I can do 4 or 5, I'll do 4 or 5. Then if I have a day I can only do one, I'll only do one. If I don't feel like watching one, I won't watch one. It kind of gives you a little more flexibility. But anyway, I'll put my list in the show notes, and then I'll also share in the show notes my Hooptober 2023 tag. I am writing little brief, capsule reviews or whatever for every movie that I watch. So if you want slightly more detail, probably not much more detail than I'm giving the pod, but if you want other thoughts of mine from whatever I wrote the second it was over, like that'll be there. It'll be fun. So the first movie I watched at the beginning of my Hooptober thing is, like I said, my best friend Cody has been obsessed with making me watch Pumpkinhead. And I'm like, I've never seen Pumpkinhead. He has this really great idea for a Pumpkinhead reboot. That's not facetious. It's actually a really good idea. I was like, we should probably try to like sell this. But I was like, I've never seen Pumpkinhead. I'll finally watch it. And then I put it on. I wasn't crazy about it. I'm not a big Pumpkinhead fan, but I've seen it before. I actually watched it like 3 Hooptobers ago and didn't like it then and completely forgot it. And sometimes if I forget that I've seen a movie, once I start it up, it'll come rushing back to me like, oh yeah, I remember this scene. I've seen this movie. That didn't happen for Pumpkinhead, and I've definitely watched it. Just none of it stuck with me, I guess. But I just didn't like it that much. It was okay. Like it's Stan Winston directed it. It's like one of the only movies the FX makeup artist genius Stan Winston made. He put a lot of work into designing this ugly fucking demon pumpkin guy. And it's like a movie about revenge and stuff. And like the movie has interesting themes. Like the ending, I think, is really, really strong. And there's a really good sense of dread, and like the actual aesthetic and everything is pretty good. Like the atmosphere is really good, but it didn't do anything for me, man. Like, I don't really have a lot to say about Pumpkinhead, to be entirely honest. It was like fine. I don't know if you know the plot, but like Lance Henriksen, his little boy gets killed. He gets run over on a motorcycle by this like douchebag teenager. And then he goes and, asks the demon Pumpkinhead for revenge or whatever. And then it comes to kill all these kids. And then he realizes the demon's going too far. He regrets his actions and he has to try to stop it. It's that type of movie. And they've made sequels that I'm never going to watch. But one of those horror movies that has something that is what I feel like is a pretty common theme for me when I watch horror movies in October is that I'm not a die-hard horror guy like a lot of my friends are. Some of my friends like love horror movies and have always been this way. I'm not to that degree with it. It's something I enjoy, especially around Halloween, but I'm not quite as naturally into horror movies. So sometimes I feel like my takes on horror movies is always either like really weird outlier opinions or like I seem like a dummy because I'm not like into the culture or whatever. But one thing that happens to me a lot with these movies is sometimes I'll go, this is a really great premise. This is a really killer setup. The execution's terrible. This is fucking awful. And what's weird is that they remake a lot of horror things. And it's so infrequent that they ever remake like the right ones. Like you should be remaking the one like Pumpkinhead. Like this has a really great premise, really good idea, but it wasn't executed well. And instead it's always like, hey, this one thing everybody loves, let's try it again. Like, no, don't do that one. Are you fucking dumb? So that's how I felt about Pumpkinhead. Like, it's just not the best. But then I watched Devil, which is based on an idea by M. Night Shyamalan. I remember when Devil originally came out, all my friends called it Hellevator because it's basically like a bunch of random people get stuck in an elevator, and one of them is the devil, and the devil's here to like convince them to kill each other and all this stuff and take their souls. But it's a weird movie in the sense that like it's not the most well made or the most well executed, but it definitely feels like a Shyamalan movie. Like it has similar things about like faith and like the way that it's like loosely inspired by like Hitchcock a little bit, and then the way like the climax seems to sort of affirm some belief in like forgiveness or some kind of like good-natured soul nourishing shit. And it kind of made me wish he just kept it and like refined it and it was just a M. Night Shyamalan movie, because I don't remember the name of the guy that directed it, but like visually it's just not there. Like, it's one of those movies that opens up with like, hey, look, we're looking at the Philadelphia skyline, but it's upside down. Oh my God, it's so crazy and dark. And I was like, all right, this is probably not going to be good. But it ended up being better than that. It was pretty fun, actually. It's got a good cast. It's got like Logan Marshall Green, Bokeem Woodbine, first ballot Hall of Famer, Bokeem Woodbine. Chris Messina is like a detective who's like on the case of the people stuck in the elevator who keep killing each other and stuff. It's like, I liked it. You know, this, honestly, I'll say this. Ideally, when you make like a horror movie list, you want movies that are like largely fun and like fit the vibe. They don't all have to be fucking winners. They don't all have to be classics. And the more years I do this, a movie like Devil usually ends up being one of the better movies you watch, because you're like, that was good. That kind of hit the spot. Not great, not bad, whatever. Is often much better than like, that was fucking terrible. Sometimes these movies are fucking terrible, and not like in a fun, trashy, pulpy way. Sometimes you're like, that fucking sucked. Why the fuck did I watch that? So ending a movie going, no, it's pretty cool. That's like a big win for me. That's like a huge win. So I watched Devil, and that was kind of cool. There's definitely definitely a very like 2009, 2010-ish movie, in good ways and bad. But I liked it. I don't know if you've ever seen Devil. I think it's worth watching. It's like, this is the time of the year for it. Then I got fucked. I watched this movie called The Last Matinee because I liked the title and the poster, and because I saw my friend Cole Bradley make a joke about how all movies inspired by giallos are bad, and this was one of them. And I like movies inspired by giallos, and I thought maybe Cole was wrong. He wasn't wrong. The Last Matinee is not very good. It's a Spanish film set in Montevideo, I believe, in like 1992 or 3 or something like that. And it's set in a movie theater. The owner is like a workaholic who's sick. So his daughter, who's like a college student, decides to watch the theater for him for a night so he can go home and see their family. And she has to be the projectionist for the night. And they're playing this like weird, shitty Frankenstein movie. And the whole movie takes place during a showing of this Frankenstein movie where someone is killing people in the theater. Oh my God. And I'm like, I'm down for that type of movie. That sounds like it's on my alley. But like, the giallo vibe is because there's like a black glove killer thing. There's like some of that, like that POV with the knife stuff, but it doesn't have like the color and the richness and the style of a lot of good giallos. It doesn't have a very cool score. I feel like 90% of even bad giallos have like dope music. This does not have dope music. The killer ends up not really making any sense, and it's kind of like silly, and not silly, but it's kind of stupid to me. The kills are all pretty grisly, you know, like you can kind of tell that the director really likes Fulci or whatever. And like the actual stuff in between the kills and like the tension building stuff is pretty good. Because you see all these there's like a little boy who snuck into the theater. There's like these like drunk teenagers or like young people, I guess. There's like a girl, and there's a little romance that happens. There's a guy who's there with a girl that he doesn't really know how to flirt with. And they create some cool drama out of those things. And there's a couple of really interesting spots where like, there's like this one particular exchange where like a bunch of different things are happening in theater all at once. And like this one guy is getting a hand job from the girl who's on a date with. At the same time, this other person's like getting killed, and this really scary moment happens, and the little boy in his row pisses himself. So the guy who just got the hand job steps out of the theater and goes to the bathroom, and he runs into the owner's daughter, who's like looking for her annoying coworker who's already been killed. And she looks at him, and he has a blood spatter on the back of his jeans, because like there was like blood that he didn't see sitting there. And she's like, "Oh, you have a stain." And he's like, "Oh no, it's just water," and runs away because of the blood. He doesn't know he has blood. He thinks that she sees like he has like cum on his pants. But then while he's in the bathroom, he runs into the little boy who also has like blood on him, and he says the same thing to him, like, "Oh, you have something," and the kid's like, no, just walk, because I peed myself. And like there's little things like that, like little, like, you know, they create like little moments of like humor out of like miscommunication and stuff like that. That stuff's good. But then, like, the longer it goes on, I was just bored as shit. The movie they use as the movie backdrop is not interesting. They don't really create anything interesting out of the juxtaposition between that movie and what's happening. It's not great. And there's like the fucking 90 million background references to Argento in a way where I was like, this doesn't even feel like one of his movies. Like, it's a weird thing to repeatedly shout him out specifically. So I wasn't crazy about that, but it was okay. It was not the worst Giallo influenced movie I've seen, but it was not the best. I'll say that. So that's what I did on the first. And then on the second, I watched Eyes Without a Face, the French film from 1959. Very different vibe than anything else that I've watched on my list so far. I had wanted to watch it because I assumed, based on the poster and the premise, that it was a big influence on Pedro Almodovar's The Skin I Live In, which is one of my favorite Almodovar movies. And it clearly kind of was, but it was just a very different vibe than I was expecting. The general plot, the gist of the movie is this like scientist, surgeon guy whose daughter was in a car accident that he caused, and her face was just like mangled and destroyed. So now him and his assistant kidnap young women that look kind of like her and cut their faces off and try to surgically graft them to his daughter's face so she can have a face again. And the faces never take. So he has to keep hunting girls and doing this. And there's like a parallel story of the detectives trying to figure out why these women all go missing. And it's really well structured and like paced, like just the way they reveal information is really interesting. And the performance from the lead, the girl who plays the daughter, is really strong. And just the visuals of her, she has this like face mask essentially that goes over her face. You just see her eyes. It's very haunting. And there's all these scenes of her just like losing her mind, stuck in this house. You know, people think she's dead because he faked her death, and like she misses her fiance who thinks she's dead, and she knows what her father's doing to these young women. She can't really stop him, and she just wants to die, but like she's not allowed to because he's such a control freak, and it's really haunting and very weird. But remember, this movie was made in like 1959, and so I assumed it would be one way. Like, we're like, oh, we're not going to see anything. There's a whole ass scene where he's like cutting a girl's face off, like on like an unbroken take. No, it's just like good makeup effects and stuff. It's very well done, especially for the time period. But you know, you watch Face Off, and they did the face cutting with lasers. It was very straightforward. This is just a dude like cutting a girl's face off. And it was just, I was not anticipating it. It really kind of got me off guard. And I was like actually kind of wincing and stuff. Like, I'm kind of a baby about certain types of gore and violence. Like, you punch a guy's head off or you rip someone's arm off, whatever. But like stuff with like hooks and like needles and little knife stuff, I don't like that type of stuff. I turned a little baby. So I was like, fuck this guy. He's awful. But it's a good little movie. It's really, really well done. Really great atmosphere and really great vibe. Very important, obviously, for like good horror, I think. And it was just very unsettling too. Just the entire energy of the piece was just like, what a fucking creep. This poor girl without a face. So I Without a Face, I strongly recommend. It's like a good ass movie. And then I watched Sisters, the De Palma movie. I've never seen this. I'm a huge De Palma fan. I haven't watched his like entire filmography. There's like 5 movies of his I haven't seen, maybe 5 or 6. This is my first time seeing this. Sisters is like his first thriller. So it's like the raw essence of him trying to do Hitchcock his own way. And Sisters, brother, is so good. Margot Kidder plays a French-Canadian woman who talks like Tommy Wiseau. And she like goes on a date with this like young black guy she meets, and then they have sex, and then the next morning he brings her a cake, and she you see her twin sister, like her evil twin sister, murder the guy. But all is not what it seems, obviously. And there's like a lot of intrigue and stuff. And there's Jennifer Salt, the worst hair anyone's ever had in a movie, is like a investigative reporter who's trying to like prove that this guy was killed because the cops don't believe her, because she wrote an expose about the cops. Like, the movie is structured really well. It's like this nesting doll of revealed information. And the way it like draws you into like these like this nesting doll of like artifice is really cool. And it's like ideas that I've seen in other Hitchcock movies, and I've seen De Palma revisit in his later work, but seeing it here was really well done. Like really powerful stuff, and like the actual storytelling is really good, and the everything about it, really, really good movie. I feel bad that I don't have anything more that's like deep to say about the movie other than like Sisters Rules. And if you've never seen it, you like have to see it. It's like honestly one of my favorite De Mall movies ever. Like sometimes you watch a lot of movies and some of them are okay and some of them are like bad and some of them are pretty good and some of them are like really good. But every now and then you get one that's like, oh yeah, no, this, like this, we need more of this. Like it was great. I definitely got to go back and watch some more De Palma before the year is out. He's one of my favorite directors, actually. I sometimes wrestle with just the way he is about like violence towards women on screen, and like every time anyone's ever confronted him about it, he's just like, "What? It's just a movie. What are you talking about?" But it's like, I don't know, man. You have a lot of movies where like women just get like fucked up, and it's just weird that you don't think it's weird. It's weird that he like never even seems bothered by it, or like it's just like it's whatever. Because he doesn't even sound the way like Quentin sounds when he's like, violence in the movies isn't real. Like, what are you doing? Shut up. Who cares? De Palma like doesn't say it like that. He says them words kind of like, I mean, what do you know? It's just my movie, and I don't know. Something about it has always rubbed me a little bit of the wrong way, I guess. But I'm a fan of his work. I mean, no one's perfect. And then I have almost nothing to say about this movie. I watched The Descent, which I've never seen before, but like I know a lot of people like, and I like the director Neil Marshall fine enough. I like some of his television work. This movie was fine. Like it starts off like this really interesting, like sort of like human drama between, it's like all these like thrill-seeking women who one of like the main one loses her husband and daughter in a car accident. It heavily implies that one of her friends is like fucking her husband before he dies, and now they're going on this like cave exploring trip together, and all the like weird tension between the friends like kind of comes to the fore in these extreme circumstances, and then they're getting like jumped by like little Nosferatu beasts who live in the cave. It's like well made. I think it's like pretty well directed and stuff. If you're claustrophobic, it really fucks with you. I'm not, but it's very enclosed space type stuff. But I found myself just more interested in the stuff between the women, and like you don't really get to explore it that deeply because it's just like dressing for this other stuff. So like I wasn't crazy about it. I was like, this is cool. Like this is a pretty good movie. I would recommend it to people. But I think it's just because I've heard very good things about it, like for almost like 15 years or whatever. Having never seen it, and then I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is good. I kind of hate when that happens. Sometimes you want to see a movie and you don't see it for years and you hear a lot of good things about it, and then you watch it and it doesn't quite live up to expectations. Sometimes you're like, oh, this is terrible. What is wrong with people? Why do they like this? But more often than not, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. That makes sense. That's nice. All right, whatever. So that's like the bulk of what I watched. Let's get into the real fucking nitty gritty of this Jason marathon that I fucking did. Okay, so I when it comes to horror stuff at the big franchises, I like the Halloween movies for the most part. I like Mike Myers. I'm not a big Texas Chainsaw guy. Like the original is really good, but I haven't watched all the other ones necessarily. I've seen some. And I like Nightmare on Elm Street quite a bit. A couple of Hooptobers ago, I watched one of the Nightmare movies, and then I just said fuck it, and I watched the entire franchise, which is kind of why I ended up doing this with Friday the 13th this time. And I like the Nightmare movies a lot because even though none of them are as good as the first one, each one is interesting, and you kind of measure like where it gets away from the raw source material, and like where it kind of comes back around in the end and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's pretty. I like the Nightmare movies quite a bit, even like the bad ones. Here's what got me about Friday the 13th. Okay, like I wish someone had fucking warned me. You know, and actually, friends probably have warned me over the years. I just forgot because I've never watched the franchise. The first Friday the 13th is like not really that good. It's like fine. It's not. It's like kind of barely good, actually. It's just kind of like whatever. There's things I knew about the franchise, like how it's a little fractured and how it starts strangely and different stuff. And I know, like, it's stupid and silly, but I know that Jason is not the killer in the first movie because it's like a bit from Scream that someone says that, like, oh, Mrs. Voorhees was the killer in the first movie. Like, that's the only reason I know this piece of trivia. But the first movie's like pretty good, I guess. Like, it's very clear that it was like this slapdash thrown together movie trying to like capitalize on the success of Halloween and stuff. And the fact that like Miss Voorhees is the killer in the first one is like pretty cool. I'll say this for the first Friday the 13th. Every Friday the 13th movie is basically about a bunch of horny teens at Camp Crystal Lake who only care about fucking. And because in late 50s, these counselors only cared about fucking, let little Jason Voorhees, the boy, drown in the lake, his mother has to just kill every horny teen. I guess they're supposed to be like college age, whatever, young people. She just kills all of them. Because it's like, if you weren't so busy being a fucking slut, my son would still be alive. And I sort of assumed that Ms. Voorhees was going to have look like a big mean lunch lady. Like I thought she was going to be kind of like a butch stereotype thing. But when you actually meet her, when she pops up in the movie, she actually does just seem like someone's mom. She has this very tasteful sweater on, and she's like very like, oh dear, come here. And then she's like, oh no, it's very clear that she has killed everybody, and like she's the killer. And then she's just like, my boy, he's my sweet boy. And then she gets her fucking head cut off. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then they do this little stabbing in the movie where Jason comes out of the water like as a little wet boy and scares the final girl. I don't even remember her name. And then at the end, she's like, what about the little boy? And like, we didn't find a little boy. And I read a little bit about all the different movies as I watched them, about the making of and different kind of behind the scenes shit or whatever. And I guess originally that was just like an idea to like be a stinger at the end of the movie. That was not, oh, we want to make a sequel with Jason as the killer. Like, that's not what that was originally. That was just a thing. You know, lots of horror movies don't have sequels end with little gotcha things at the end. They don't amount to anything. This one amounted to something. Because Friday the 13th Part 2 is like more like a movie. It's like kind of better. Jason is the killer this time around. But then I forgot that for this movie, he doesn't have the hockey mask yet. He's just walking around with like a bag on his head. And it just feels like, again, kind of like a pretty run-of-the-mill guy going through the woods, killing girls. And here's the thing. I like slasher movies, and I've watched a lot of them. And obviously, a lot of them have taken their cues from the basic iconography of like the Friday the 13th movies. But the movies themselves are not all that good. Because sometimes you watch a thing that's like ripping off a popular thing, and that popular thing is like really fucking good. Like the original source is like, oh, this is so good. Like the first time I saw the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was like, oh shit, okay, I can feel like this isn't stepped on, this is that like uncut shit. I didn't feel that with the Friday the 13th movies. I was more like, fuck, how are these this popular? It's like, I was literally texting my friends, like, do they get better? Like, what the fuck? And the second one is like, whatever, it's like fine. And then the third one, he finally gets the hockey mask. And I was like, all right, it's kind of coming together. I get why the hockey mask stuck and became so iconic, because it looks fucking cool. A guy with a knife and a hockey mask looks cool. There's not fucking science to this, you know? And let me see if I wrote all the titles down too, because I couldn't remember all the exact titles. But it's what? Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, Friday the 13th, a new beginning, Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, The New Blood, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, and then Jason X, Jason 10, the one in space. And then I watched Freddy vs. Jason, and then I watched the 2009 reboot. But okay, 3 is like fine. 2, it's also kind of silly and like dumb a little bit. Watching these back to back is a little rough because they do start to like just blend in your mind. And 3 is like, you know, it's whatever. Then I got to like 4, the final chapter, and I remember this one being like pretty good. I was kind of like, okay, like this is like more like a movie, I suppose. The thing about these movies too is that like they're not really meant, I think, to be binged. I mean, no movies are meant to be binged this way, right? But every Friday the 13th movie opens with like, they just replay the fucking climax of the last one. So when 1 is over and you watch 2 opens up with the last scene from 1, and then 3 opens up with the last scene from 2. And I'm like, what? Like, I just watched this. And also these movies came out all like a year apart. So I have a hard time believing anyone would be willing to go see a 2, a 3, a 4 if they didn't see the other ones already. So like, and even if they didn't, you don't need to watch the whole fucking end of the previous movie to get it. Like, I get it. There's a guy fucking killing kids, and this isn't rocket science, you know? So like, that was getting on my fucking nerves. I think the final chapter was the one where I was kind of like, this is actually pretty good. Like, I can mostly like this, but it's still not very good. And then A New Beginning, I think is the one that has Crispin Glover in it and Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis. So like A New Beginning, I was like mostly into. I remember thinking like, this is like actually basically a pretty good movie. Like I actually kind of fuck with this one. Nothing, groundbreaking. It's still just a bunch of horny teens and Jason. And then now there's like a little boy who's like Corey Feldman. And that I mostly liked The New Beginning. I was like, this is cool. Like the kills are pretty good, whatever. Everything was fine. And then, it ends with Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis, like killing Jason. And like, he like shaves his head so that Jason will think of him as himself as a child to distract him. And then he stabs him to death. And then, it's like a weird, it's a weird thing that's like the way they go. I'm sorry, I got stammered for a second because I'm wondering, I'm realizing like I think I might have some of these events out of order. But I think no, you know what? I think I got this wrong. Okay, so I think I don't think New Beginning is the one that opens. I'm just, full disclosure. I actually just don't remember this, so I apologize. I've gotten to this part of the show, but one of the fucking movies around here is the first one where Jason is like becomes like canonically supernatural, because like the first couple of movies, it's like, oh, the little boy didn't die, and now he's a grown man, but I don't know how he's a grown man. And he died, but this time he didn't die or whatever. They do all this shit out of it, and then I want to say that like one of them opens where it's like, no, explicitly like, no, he's like, this is supernatural. Like he is brought back to life by like lightning and shit. And I think that actually doesn't happen. Fuck, I watched all these movies. I really don't remember. I'm not even like, I don't want to pause and like look this shit up. It's embarrassing. But somewhere in here, that to me was when the movie started getting good. I was like, okay, for me to like a Jason movie, he has to be supernatural. I need to know that he is like a zombie golem. This can't be a thing where he's just a guy and maybe he dies, maybe he doesn't. And it's like plot armor or whatever. Like I need it to be fucking clear to me that he is otherworldly. Let's not hide from this, And I think, yeah, like I'm actually kind of, a little bit, I don't remember one of these fucking, this is we're just going to look it up. I actually really have to go look at my own Letterboxd logging to fucking make sure I got this shit right about these fucking movies. Because otherwise it's just going to drive me crazy. It's just going to piss me off. It's going to drive me absolutely insane. All right, here we go. I'm just gonna go to my Letterboxd and okay, wait a second. Let's see. Final Chapter is the fourth one. Okay, I was wrong. Okay, Final Chapter, yeah, is the one that has Crispin Glover in them, and I liked it. There is like, sorry, this is one bit that I had to like shout out from the fourth one, where there's a guy who's like around and you figure out that he's the brother of a girl that got killed in the previous movie or one of the previous movies. And he's there explicitly to try to kill Jason. But so he's like this kind of mountain man. He has like his like hiking gear and shit. He's like ready to fight Jason. And then when they finally come face to face, Jason just stabs him to death. But as Jason is stabbing him to death, he's just screaming like, he's killing me. Oh God, he's stabbing me. And like, it just goes on for entirely too long. He just keeps yelling. Oh, he should be dead by now. The level of screaming, he should have bled out, but he's still just like, he's killing. He's not even trying to fight back. It's fucking awful. But yeah, like, okay. I think it's The New Beginning, which was the first one where I actually started really enjoying it. Like for real. Like, so, okay. By the fifth movie, I'm like mentally, my brain is kind of mush, right? I watched 5 of them all in one day. So the fifth one I watched like right before bed is the last movie the day I'm watching. And the fifth one is the one that like Jason's not even fucking in, because it picks up with the character from Corey Feldman's character, Tommy Jarvis, from the previous movie. Only now he's like older, he's like an adult. 1 year has passed in between movies, but like 10 have passed in like, or 15 or something in continuity. And the guy that plays him just plays him as like this tightly wound dude who's been in mental institutions his whole life because he's scarred from what he saw and how he killed Jason. And then he's with a bunch of other mentally unwell people at this like camp for the unwell. And they're all like colorful characters, but you can't tell what their actual like mental afflictions are because they're just cartoons. And then someone is killing people again, and you think it's Jason, but it also heavily implies that it's Tommy, that like he's turning into Jason because of his psychosis. But it's not him. It's like it's revealed to be this other guy who you see for 1 second in the movie. It's one of the most like not play fair twists in movie history. It's such bullshit. And it's so ridiculous. But the whole movie has like such a fun tone that you get into the realm of like, oh, it doesn't actually matter if these are good anymore. They're just funny now. They're just weird. Like, you no longer are expecting one of these to actually be a classic. That doesn't matter. It's just like, if every year we have to make a movie where Jason kills these people, it's just about how can you do that? How can you make that happen? A similar thing I think happens if you watch all the Bond movies in order, is you reach a point where it's just like, all right, well, how do we do all the things? How do we have Bond do this? What car does he drive? What watch does he wear? Who's the girl he fucks in the first scene? Who's the villain? Like, there's just these things you just kind of get those things done. And I feel like 5, they're just like, well, we need to try to make this different. And the way they make it different is by not having Jason in the fucking movie. The guy that's killing these people is just a guy. Also, like, the first kill of the movie isn't even the killer. It's like a guy at the mental health camp murders another guy, and the scene is so weird. I laughed really hard because I thought it was just like a fantasy cutaway sequence, but it was like, oh, he really did just kill that guy? That's the first person that dies in this fucking movie? He just fucking hacks a guy with an axe because he was annoying? We never see that guy again? He's not the killer? Crazy shit. But like, there's stuff in it that's pretty fun. It's ridiculous is basically it. Like, sometimes you want to watch a horror movie that's like not good but is entertaining. Like, this is kind of that, I think. But then it gave way to part 6, Jason Lives, which is like the only really good one. It took like 6 times, but there is one actually good Friday the 13th movie, and it's this one. It's Jason Lives. Because in this one, they basically act like A New Beginning didn't happen. And a different guy is playing Tommy Jarvis, and you know that he's been in mental institutions, but he's not like debilitated by it like the Tommy in the last movie was. He also doesn't like, in the last one, Tommy, every time someone provokes him, he just like starts fighting them with like weird like precision. He like is a guy in Roadhouse or something. And then this Tommy's just like a guy. He looks kind of like a off-brand Emilio Estevez. And he goes with his buddy to dig up Jason's grave, to like burn it, to make sure he's dead. Like, he can't have peace unless he knows that he's in the grave and fully dead. And then when he opens the grave and sees like worms going through Jason's brain and shit, a lightning bolt hits it and brings him back to life. And so now Jason, this is the point, I'm glad I looked this up. This is the point where it becomes like canonically supernatural now. Jason is literally an undead being. And that's just what we're doing with these movies now. And Jason starts killing people again. Now Tommy feels like he's personally responsible for it and has to stop him. But everyone else thinks that it's bullshit and thinks that Tommy's the killer and stuff. So it's like a real movie. Straight up. Like, it's the first one in here where I was like, this is like a real movie. And I actually really like it. And like, okay, one of the things in these movies too is that all the counselors at these camps, there's no kids at the camp. So you just see counselors hanging out together and partying and barbecuing and fucking. And I'm like, what is their job? Like, I feel like the kids in that I Think You Should Leave sketch, like, what does she do? And it's like, tables. Like, okay, no, but that doesn't explain it to me. What do these counselors do? Because I never see them counseling at the camp. I never see other kids. And I couldn't tell if that's just because it was implying that like they're not that much older than the kids that they're counseling. But in this one, Jason Lives, it's a bunch of kids, like kids. There's a bunch of kids around, and the counselors have to protect these children. And I was like, oh, they're like actually doing their jobs. I mean, some of them are like horny too, but they're like fucking doing their jobs. And I just dug it. Jason Lives is so much better than the movies. Like, it's not, I mean, even this one's not like, fucking some classic, but it's really good. It's way more fun. And like, the kills are good, and Jason's like appropriately menacing, and like there's an actual plot. Like, the actual plot makes sense. You're not just waiting for Jason to stab people while kids are having bad sex. There's actually like stuff to it. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think in the last movie, or no, I guess, when does he take over? I think Kane Hodder doesn't take over as Jason until part 7, The New Blood. And he plays Jason from this to the one in space, basically. And I saw a Letterboxd Caps review on here from a woman named Willow, and she said that Kane Hodder becoming Jason is the same thing as like the point in the Undertaker's career where he stopped being the dead man and like just started doing like regular guy shit. You know, like, because you watch old Undertaker matches and he really sticks to the gimmick and he only has this very, very stiff, very specific movement. And then over time, it was like, all right, he can just be he's a real wrestler. He doesn't have to just be like, there's more dimension to him. And Kane Hodder's performance as Jason is he moves much more like a guy. There's more like animation to his movement in a cool way. I think I kind of I like them. The New Blood part 7 is like officially where it goes off the rails though, because every movie at this point onward is just like bad ideas or like okay ideas, but executed very badly. So like this one onward, every movie has like a hook, and then you have to wait like an hour to see that thing. So in 7, The New Blood, the hook is that it's like, hey, what if the final girl, the last 20 minutes is always Jason chasing the last girl. What if that girl had carry telekinesis powers? That's the whole pitch. So you get this very boring movie with these very uninteresting people and this very boring girl who has telekinetic powers and then also can see the future and then also can like, they very nebulous powers. And she ends up finally having a showdown with Jason where Jason tries to kill a girl like he's used to, but this girl can like throw things at him with her mind. I mean, like in some ways it's like, I know it's like Carrie is the big touchstone for this, but I remember thinking like Jean Grey kind of like, what if Jason had to fight like the Dark Phoenix? It doesn't go that far, unfortunately. The actual final thing where she does all the psychic stuff in him is pretty cool. I mean, she essentially beats him like 6 times in a row or whatever. It gets very muddled. I feel like The New Blood has like this one idea that is only interesting for like 10 minutes of screen time. And this is around the point where I started wondering like, why did I do this? Because then part 8 is Jason Takes Manhattan. And I thought I've actually seen pieces of this one before, but I never watched more than maybe one scene. The idea is that the guy that did this one developed 2 separate ideas. One was like, hey, what if Jason was on like a cruise ship or like a boat, sort of like Speed 2 Cruise Control, but like with Jason. And this would be before that movie, obviously. And the other was like, what if we took Jason out of fucking Camp Crystal Lake and took him to like New York City? What would that be like? Like Jason in New York. And like the trailer for the movie, like really, really stuck on the New York shit. But they actually merged those 2 things together. So the first like 60-70% of the movie is Jason on a boat. And it's really fucking boring. All the people, the students, everybody on this boat, who gives a shit about them? They suck. They're not interesting. They're boring. And Jason killing them is like not very entertaining. It's not until they get to New York that you get some good stuff. Even though New York looks extremely like Canada, it's still like this crazy sleazy New York where like you get to watch him like he kills like a drug-addled rapist. You know, like he like kills like people you kind of want to see get killed, I guess. And the New York sections of Jason Takes Manhattan are pretty good. Particularly, you've definitely seen the scene memed a million times. There's the young black dude in like gym gear who just decides to fist fight Jason. He just starts punching him. They're fighting on a rooftop. He punches him for like 6 minutes. And then he runs out of energy because Jason doesn't go down. And he looks at Jason and he's like, just give me your best shot. And then Jason punches his fucking head clean off his shoulders into a dumpster, like on the lower level, and the dumpster top closes. It's one of the best gags I've ever seen in cinema history. It's worth the movie is not very good. It's worth it for this one moment. And then like Jason ends up being killed by like toxic waste here, I think. Then we get to the point that like, I think this is around the time like New Line gets involved, and they don't have like the same rights to the Friday the 13th thing. So after this, the titles become like just Jason stuff. And the last one is Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Not the last one, like one of the last ones. And in this one, it's like it jumps forward in the future. It's like the longest gap between movies at first, like because every other one only came out every year and a half. This is like 1993 or something. and it opens like every other Friday the 13th, essentially, with like a girl running from Jason and whatnot. But then it's revealed that she's like an undercover FBI agent, and like there's like a whole task force designed to kill Jason, and they do that. But then the coroner eats his heart or his brain, I think, and then becomes Jason. So the whole movie, Jason's actually like body hopping into different people. And there's this like bounty hunter guy who knows how to kill Jason. I don't know why he does though. And the only way to kill Jason is if you have this like mystical dagger, and the only person who can do it is someone who's blood related to him. So it's like his grandniece has to do it. And there's this like ongoing drama between her and like her baby daddy and her baby. And she's fucking the guy from like a Hard Copy. Remember the show Hard Copy in like the 90s? Like there's like a show like that, and the host of that show is her new boyfriend. And then Jason keeps hopping into it's actually really shitty. Jason Goes to Hell is really shitty. It decidedly looks and feels like the 90s in a really bad way. And the other movies are all very 80s. And this is the first one where you kind of realize like, oh yeah, this is like, I don't know if this concept was built to last beyond 1989, you know? It doesn't feel right in 1993. And there's a lot of it that I was like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. But after that, you get one more good one. One mostly good one, which is around this time, right? The entire purpose of New Line and stuff, you know, the franchises, they also own Freddy, and they wanted to do Jason and Freddy in a fight movie. But it kept not lining up for various reasons. So enough time had passed where the original producer was trying to make a Freddy versus Jason movie happen, but he couldn't. So he's like, I need to make a new Jason movie so that people remember Jason, so that he's a big enough deal for the fight movie to make sense. And the movie that they greenlit was Jason 10, Jason X, and it takes place 5 years in the future, and it's in space. So in this movie, it's like, you know, like 15, 20 years after the end of Jason Goes to Hell. Also, Jason Goes to Hell, I'm sorry I'm hopping around like this. It's like I said, it's been a very weird couple of days. Jason Goes to Hell ends with like his mask, like the hockey mask, being pulled underground by the Freddy glove, by Freddy's hands. So like it clearly like was like the post-credit scene, Avengers Initiative of the horror world. Like, when are we going to get this? This started in 1993. So then it's like 2001, 2002 that you get Jason 10. We still haven't gotten the Freddy vs. Jason movie. And Jason 10 looks like a cross between like a sci-fi original and then like Emmanuel in Space, or just like a sci-fi themed like Skinamax John. And I know that sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually kind of like a huge improvement over the last few movies. So it's in like the near future, Jason has come back again. One of the things about these movies is that the first several movies, or the first few movies, I guess, are all like very sticking to the idea of like the continuity of here's what happened in the last one, here's what happened in the last one, because they're so close together. But in between the last one in the 80s and then Jason Goes to Hell, it feels like we've maybe missed 2 or 3 or 4 Friday the 13th. That he probably keeps coming back, but we don't need to know what the particulars were. There's probably some bullshit, but he's back again. Like, you just accept that maybe he just keeps coming back, and it's fine. So in between Goes to Hell and this one, you assume, okay, he went to hell, he's back again. He keeps coming back. That's fine. He came back again. And at this point in the future, he's been captured by like, you know, it's the future of like 2010. So it's only 10 years in the future. This government agency wants to take him and use his regenerative abilities to make like a clone army or something. And the scientist who comes to take him away is played by David Cronenberg. I don't know why. He's killed like 45 seconds later. And then he ends up being cryogenically frozen along with the scientist, not David Cronenberg, this girl. And then they're found 400 years in the future by a spaceship on a field trip to the original Earth, because all humans live on Earth 2 now, because Earth got fucked by, you know, what's going to happen to us too. So in the future, they're in space, yada, yada. It's the same stuff. It's like a bunch of horny young people on a spaceship, you know, all the things that, you know, Jason's like uniquely hardwired to fucking hate. Like, somebody's fucking near here. Are you serious? There's probably a boy drowning while you're trying to get a nut. I hate this. I'm going to kill you. That's happening. He wakes up, like he literally is brought back to life. He like thaws in a scene right as 2 people are about to fuck. And he's like, no, I got to go kill them. That's not cool. So much of the movie is just Jason on a spaceship in the future trying to kill people like usual, but except there's like some SWAT guys trying to stop him. He dispenses with them. One of the lead guys has like a android girlfriend, so she's fighting him, and it's very like cool, I guess. But the thing that Jason 10 really markets to you is the idea of Uber Jason. On the poster and in the trailers, you see like this cyborg, super shredder, roided out version of Jason. And that hasn't happened to the last like 20 minutes, where they think they kill him. And then his remains land on this like sci-fi healing bed thing that they use to save the scientist girl. And then he comes back even stronger. He has like robot arms and he's like super unkillable. But then he doesn't get to really like do a lot. Like he already has done all the cool kills up to this point. So now Uber Jason just kind of like walks in a straight line, bursting through walls, trying to stop them. And then like they end up getting away and someone sacrificed themselves. He ends up being jettisoned out into space, but then he ends up falling through the Earth 2's atmosphere and lands in a lake where two horny people got to fuck in the woods. It's very like, you know, brings the entire franchise kind of full circle. And I liked it. I like Jason 10 a lot, actually. I was like, this is fine. This is like big and stupid and broad and like all the stuff that I like. So this is fine. But then they did finally make Freddy vs. Jason a couple of years later. And I think partially because of the fact that the Friday the 13th franchise's like Q rating was lower at this point. Not that Freddy's was much higher. Rather than what would have been like a Friday the 13th movie that has Freddy dream shit in it, it's really like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie that just has Jason in it in like a supporting role. And I'm not crazy about Freddy vs. Jason, to be honest. I thought it was fine. I've been led to believe that it was really good. I don't want to say it's not really good, but it's just like fine. It's a movie that was in like development hell for like a decade. They had like so many different writers working on it, and like none of them were even like great. You know, it's not like they put like their best minds on this task. And the guys who ended up writing it are like, whatever. It's a very 2000s, like early 2000s movie. So there's that. It has that like studio sheen to it that none of these other older movies have that I don't like. The guy playing Jason is like a random stuntman from Jason Takes Manhattan. It's not Kane Hodder anymore, and this guy's not any good. There's no like presence to his Jason, and the way Jason behaves and operates doesn't feel like any other version of Jason. And Robert Englund's just like jacking off, basically. He's just like not putting a lot of work into Freddy in this movie. It's very lazily written, lazily performed. And like the one thing that's cool is like some of the logistical stuff about like, oh, like in this future, Springwood, not the future, but in this world, Springwood is like safe from Freddy, and people don't remember Freddy because all the parents, like, no one talks about Freddy anymore. Any kid who dreams about him gets sent to a hospital and put on a drug that doesn't allow them to sleep. So he's been forgotten. And because he's been forgotten, he needs to pretend to be Jason's mom to manipulate Jason into going to Springwood and killing people while he regains his strength so he can kill them later. But then Jason just kills people he wants. So then him and Jason start to feud, and the kids are kind of caught in the middle. But they sort of side with Jason because like he can actually do damage to Freddy. It's almost like watching. It's not like a horror movie with action elements. It's like an action movie that has very few horror elements. And you know, the whole movie is just constructed around getting them to fight. They have one round fighting in the dream world where Freddy's like winning, and then one round in like the real world where they both lose, kind of. It's like fine. I think just by the point that I made it at this point, like I'd already watched 10 fucking Jason movies, even though I prefer the Nightmare on Elm Street films like a lot more. I love Wes Craven. And I like that Wes Craven never wanted this movie to happen because he felt like you were bringing a pretty good thing down to like the lowest common denominator, which is essentially kind of what happened here. I mean, I think there could have been ways to blend them together better than they did. But he's right. Essentially, what's interesting about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is like stripped away to make this thing work. But this thing isn't even uniquely like the Friday the 13th films either. It doesn't feel like Jason. It doesn't feel like Freddy. It just feels like this weird third thing. It feels like something designed for the kind of people that just want to see Ash from Evil Dead crossover with a bunch of stuff. And that's fine. And there's nothing against that. It's just I'm not into that. I'd actually have preferred if it was just Jason fighting Ash, because like one of the things from, I want to say the New Blood, no, Jason Goes to Hell, I think actually literally does have like a non-legal connection to Evil Dead. It implies that Jason is a Deadite, so that would have made more sense, even though it probably would have been illegal. But the movie's just like whatever. And also there's just this one fucking scene where like Kelly Rowland calls Freddy the F slur, which is the homophobic slur at Freddy. And I watched literally like 9 movies all set in the 80s and didn't hear it once. And then randomly, Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child gets this line off. And I was like, why? What was this for? Very weird movie. Very weird everything. But when I finished Freddy vs. Jason, all I had left to do was the Friday the 13th reboot from 2009, the Platinum Dunes reboot. And I watched it, and I did not like it at all. I've actually seen a lot of my friends log it as being pretty good, or they liked it, or they think it's got a bad rap. So maybe if I saw it again, I'd feel differently, but I did not like it at all. I didn't want like what this movie was. So even though I watched all these movies, it was a very weird experience, and some of them blended together in my mind. I did come to like appreciate Jason as an iconic figure. And I think that Jason works the best when it's kind of simple and like accepts that it's supernatural and just sticks to like the general thing of like, look, this weird boy drowned because a bunch of horny losers let him drown. So now he is on a lifelong, multiple lives long war on horniness. Like if you were going to fuck near the woods, he's going to kill you. Jason's going to kill you because like, how dare you? And that makes sense to me. Like I kind of get this. I get that central thing, you know? And what they did for the reboot was like try to make it more like grounded, and they make it explicit that Jason, the little boy, just survived by himself in the woods. So he just raised himself in the woods. And he's like a frontiersman kind of. So it's like Jason feels more like a weird hunter. And I didn't fucking like that at all. Derek Mears' version of Jason is like big and imposing, but he doesn't have very interesting physicality to me the way Auteur did. And all the teens are like people from CW shows, and they all feel like fucking 30, and they're all kind of plastic and boring and unfunny, and the script is not very good, and I just didn't like it. It was just like, I'm not enjoying this at all. Because usually even the bad Freddy movies, even the bad Jason movies have a point where like you're not kind of into it, and then like the kills start, well, this is kind of fun, or there's something goofy or something weird or something strange. And if you take away a lot of the goofy and strange stuff, you're just left with this very bland, straightforward movie that feels like a million other movies, but somehow doesn't feel like Friday the 13th, which I thought was very strange. And I don't know if I just feel like fundamentally that's a franchise that is like inexorably bound to being campy and weird in 80s. You know, it just felt like I didn't need a fucking 2009 version of it. Like I was fine with him going to space in the future because that was like, even though that wasn't quite right, it still felt right. But yeah, Freddy vs. Jason, I was not crazy about it. Didn't really like it very much. Well, I already said that. No, I mean, the reboot. I didn't like the reboot very much either. So after that, I was like, all right, well, I did it. I watched fucking 11 fucking Jason, all of them. I watched all the fucking Jason movies. I'm good now. I don't know why I went on this crazy excursion, but I did it. And then I felt like I needed to go one step further, which is that I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Streets except the Platinum Dunes reboot from 2010. So right after I finished Friday the 13th, took a break. I ate some food, like vacuumed and did some stuff. I was like, you know what? Let's just finish her off. Let's watch the Platinum Dunes 2010 reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Sam Bayer, who directed the video for Smells Like Teen Spirit and all of Green Day's American Idiot stuff. It is so fucking awful. One of the worst things I've ever watched. Like the 2009 Friday the 13th, I didn't like, but I didn't like hate it. It just wasn't for me. I just like didn't feel anything good about it. I wasn't like offended or something. I just felt like this isn't it. I just don't dig this. The reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street, I was like, this is not only not it is everything I hate. It is so bad. People had kind of told me, not told me, but I'd read some little capsules on Letterboxd about the movie. People were like, yeah, Jackie Earle Haley's like pretty cool as a replacement for Robert Englund. No, he's not. People like, he's like the one saving grace in the movie. He's not. He fucking sucks. Jackie Earle Haley's Freddy Krueger fucking sucks. He's fucking terrible. It's a terrible performance. The design of the character is fucking awful. They use like CG for his like burn shit at some point, I think. It looks fucking awful. He looks fucking stupid. Everything he says is dumb, and it's such a bad performance. Like, I can't believe that anyone ever liked it. I fucking hated it. And my biggest issue with the movie is like twofold. One, it tries a little bit too hard to be some kind of like dark, interesting, gritty, real take on Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's like about repressed memories and childhood trauma and abuse and stuff. And like, if you have a movie that's just about like how horrendous and fucked up, like, a child rapist is, then all the stuff with the knife hand guy and the dream stuff just feels like stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to make this like, no, it's like real. This is like what it's like for people who grow up with these repressed memories and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's like a depressing, dark thing, and like you want to explore that. That's cool. But then every time you cut away to a guy being like, oh, it's me, it's like, what the fuck? Why do we like? I don't think that we needed to make it. I know that when Wes Craven, I guess, originally conceived of Nightmare on Elm Street, he wanted to make it explicit that Freddy was a child molester. But that for the purposes of the movie, or I don't know, the times or whatever, they made it that she just killed kids. Like, he just killed him. He didn't do anything sexual. But for this, it's like, no, explicitly, 1,000%. Freddy was a fucking pedophile. And these parents found out and they fucking murdered him. But the way the movie's constructed, like, it makes the parents seem really bad. And I think that's the thing I like that about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, is the parents always seem kind of like nefarious and like untrustworthy, kind of the way like adults are not trustworthy in like Scooby-Doo stories. Like, the adults are 1,000% always lying to the kids and hiding things from them that make it hard for them to keep themselves safe, right? I've always dug that. And I've always thought a better version of the story would be if Freddy was innocent, like if Freddy wasn't a fucking child molester, it hadn't done anything wrong, and was like, they just framed him or something. And he's getting revenge because he didn't do it. I think I've always thought that would be so much more interesting, because it is in line with how nefarious and untrustworthy the parents feel. But this movie just uses that idea as like a red herring. It lets you believe for a little bit that maybe that's the truth, but then it's like, no, he actually 1,000% is a fucking diddler and a piece of shit. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the other thing is the dream stuff in the Nightmare movies, in the earlier movies, like especially the first one, like it's genuinely scary. And then as the movies progress, even though they're not scary anymore, they're mostly funny, they're still imaginative. They're still like ridiculous, thought out, crazy dream shit. This movie, the dream stuff is like so boring and flat and bland. And they use like really ugly CG for some stuff. And like, I'm not just saying this because it's directed by a music video director, but all the things look like generic music video backgrounds for things in the worst way possible. And I fucking hated it. And it just sucked, dude. Like, Rooney Mara plays Nancy, like the main girl. And like, I like Rooney Mara. She's a good actress. But the character is like, just like nothing. Like, all these characters like aren't written as anything. They're just like sad teens who don't know that they were molested because their parents willfully hid these memories from them and didn't tell them all this stuff. And there's a part of the movie that's sort of like a mystery thriller, them trying to unpack this stuff. And that part is good. It feels like a different kind of movie, which I was into. But the Freddy stuff is so shitty and so fucking bad. And like all the stuff they show of him like pre-burns is weird. And then like the him getting burned shit is weird. Everything about it is like super goddamn bad. So bad. And I just felt like I didn't need a precursor to the A24 everything is about trauma era of elevated horror. And that's kind of what this feels like. Only without the style, without the like visual, like goodness. Like some of those movies are kind of bland or whatever, but they like look cool at least, or they're interesting. This doesn't even have that. It fucking sucks. It's like the worst fucking goddamn movie. So that was the last horror movie I watched today. I wanted to watch another movie. It's like a palate cleanser, but I was like, two things. One, I will not have room to talk about it, whatever it is in the podcast. And two, I actually just need to like let this go. Maybe just like sleep it off or something. I hated the Nightmare reboot, and I'm so glad they didn't make any sequels to it. I'm glad they didn't make any sequels to the reboot of Friday the 13th either. They both, to me, were not worthy of that. So that's all the stuff I watched, and that was a huge thing. I definitely got into the weeds and the Jason stuff. I'm sorry. Watching 11 Jason movies back to back over the course of a couple of days, not good for your mind, obviously. So thank you guys for rocking with me on that. We have time for just a couple of questions. So the first one, Susan asks, I have a question I actually had been thinking about before you mentioned foreign language films in your last pod. What are some of your favorite foreign language films, and what are some of your favorite foreign language film performances? Thanks, really love the pod. For me, I'm not like foreign language films. To me, it's like when I don't think about like the cinema of specific countries that speak to me. It's usually like a specific filmmaker who happens to be from someplace else. So I think the most important ones to me are like Christian Petzold from Germany. Nina Haas in Phoenix is probably one of my favorite film performances, period, but specifically foreign language performances. If you haven't seen Phoenix, I think it's from 2015. It's kind of like a Vertigo riff set in like post-war Berlin. Really fucked up movie, really well made. One of my favorite movie endings. If you've never seen it, please sprint to go watch it somewhere. It's fantastic. From China, Wong Kar-wai, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I love all of his movies. But if I had to like pick a standout like performance from one of them, I would probably say I really like Takeshi Kaneshiro in Chungking Express. And there's definitely, or Tony Liu in Tony Leung in I can't say words. Tony Leung in Happy Together is a really good performance too. Always brings me to tears. And then I mentioned earlier Pedro Almodovar is one of my favorite filmmakers. In terms of really good performances, like every one of his movies has like a bunch of banger performances. So many women have had so many great roles in his films. Like just so many. I can't really even pick one. The first film of his I think I ever saw was All About My Mother. And I watched that in like school. I think I let my Spanish teacher let me write about it. And I don't remember the actress's name who's the lead in that movie, but it's a really beautiful performance. If you've never seen that movie, definitely seek it out. Those are probably my big three, I guess. The three that I'm the most into. Yeah. Thanks for the love of the pod. Thank you, Susan. You always have such thoughtful comments and questions. You're really nice. And then final question of the week is from Born Hitman. He asks, speaking of Hickman, I was talking about Jonathan Hickman a couple of episodes ago. Any of his works you would want to see adapted? I think East of West could make an incredible TV show given the proper budget and scripting. I agree. I love East of West. I don't know what directors you could get for a show like that who would be able to kind of help usher it visually. Like, I don't know how you could really capture Nick Trigata's like language visually into a movie properly, but it'd be fun to watch someone try. I have a very easy answer to this though, is when I saw Oppenheimer the other month, all I thought about afterwards was if someone adapted Hickman's The Manhattan Projects, which follows like all those same scientists, but like in this crazy sci-fi movie weird version of it. And I was like, you could literally get everybody from Oppenheimer, all these actors to like redo their parts, but it would be this bonkers gonzo version of that story kind of. And I thought that'd be really cool. Probably could never happen, but if you had to pick one, that's what I would pick, like 1,000%. And then his bonus question, favorite non-superhero comic book movie? For me, it would probably be Atomic Blonde. It's kind of hard. I'm gonna have two cheap answers. Sin City, definitely non-superheroes, but it's based on a graphic novel, and I love the first Sin City. It holds up really well to me. And then Scott Pilgrim, I guess. Like I'm not excited about this new anime thing they're doing at all, but the original Scott Pilgrim movie, really good, really holds up to me. I think it gets kind of overrated over the years because some people like obsess over it and make it their personality, but it's a good movie. It's really good. It improves on the comic in some ways, not always. I think I prefer the comics, but yeah, those are probably my two fave non-superhero comic book movies. Thanks, man. Good question. I guess that does it for us this week. I know I went very long. I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. Like I was just going to be, hey, I'll talk about my first rung of spooky movies, and then I did the Friday the 13th thing, and like I mentally thought that Friday was the 13th, but that's next week. So like I've now completed a Friday the 13th themed episode, and then next Friday it's going to be about something else because I don't know how time works. I'm the worst. So if you watch this on YouTube and you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you loved it somehow, I'd appreciate that. If you subscribe and give me a little thumbs up too, still do that. And then also hit the little bell icon to get notifications whenever we put out new videos. I know for a while it's just been me uploading the pod, but we will have new videos up soon. There's a film I'm seeing next week. I hope I'm going to be able to go see. That is very anticipated, and I'll probably make a video about that. And so keep on the lookout for that. And then if you're listening to this on just your whatever podcast platform of your choosing, please subscribe, follow me, whatever, leave a review, give me a rating, share with your friends. You know, help grow the pod if you can and want to. So yeah, again, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate everyone's patience from last week. Like I'm still kind of chapped about that whole thing, but hopefully listening to me rant about Jason this week helps make up for it. I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. We will talk soon.